Look, I know Halloween has come and gone, but I'm about to take you down a very interesting road for a minute. Buckle up. My next guest says each and every one of us can tap into our own psychic ability, which is why he has released the newly released book, Becoming Psychic. And this morning he's here to tell us all about it. Psychologist and author Jeff Tarrant. Jeff, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
You got to tell me more about this book.
Okay. So the book is kind of a combination of things, because it certainly gets into the science of what do we know about what's going on in the brain of psychics and mediums and energy healers. But then at the same time, there's stories around it, because just reading about brain stuff would get boring after a minute. Yeah. and then at the end of each chapter, we try to offer some try-it-yourself elements, so that if people are interested in exploring this for themselves, there's some ideas on how to move forward.
Wow. Okay, so let's dive into these try-it-yourself segments.
Okay.
After we read the science behind it, do I have to try it myself like a few times before I'm zoned in and I'm like, I know what's going on? And I can call myself a psychic.
Yes. Well, you could call yourself a psychic anyway, but...
All right, we'll put that on my lower. Actually, our host psychic.
Yeah. So some of the try-it-yourself things are exercises. So they might be meditations, or they might be ways to stimulate the brain to get them into sort of the right zone, or breathwork exercises. So some of the try-it-yourself aren't actually psychic experiments. It's more getting the brain prepared to be able to more easily access that. Other parts of the try-it-yourself are actually, here's a deck of cards. Can you predict black versus red? Can you predict the suit of the cards as you're flipping them over, if you're doing a telepathy experiment, or, so there's little games kind of built in so that people can start to experiment and learn how these processes work for them.
Jeff, what sparked your interest in this particular, field? I know you're a psychologist, but, there's so many different things you can do when you are a psychologist, so many different avenues. What made you travel down this one?
It was purely by accident, if we believe in accidents, or maybe it was...
Happy accident.
Happy accident. The universe kind of put this in my lap about 11 years ago. I wasn't looking for it, but I was introduced to a woman who started channeling these South American tribal languages after a breathwork experience. She didn't even know what she was saying. And I was introduced to her and asked if I wanted to map her brain. And I said, yes.
Of course. Don't turn that opportunity down.
Yeah. And after meeting with her many times and mapping her brain and learning about her story and finding out that this was validated by an anthropologist of what was happening, it really opened my mind and sort of opened a whole world of exploring this with dozens and dozens of other gifted individuals.
Wow. So what have you found when looking at the brain of these mediums and psychics?
Yeah, and there are certain patterns that tend to show up semi-consistently.
Okay.
And I'm using some vague language there because there are certain brain regions that seem to be involved. But the way that they turn on or off is a little bit individualized. Different people might have different ways to do that.
Okay.
One of the big things that we see is a big difference between the right hemisphere and the left hemisphere. And this is something that most people can kind of understand, that the left hemisphere is more language oriented, more linear, more logical, more analytic. The right hemisphere is more experience based. What is happening in the moment? It's more of a present moment, just awareness. And not surprisingly, the psychics and mediums tend to shift a lot of energy over into the right hemisphere when they're doing their thing.
Yeah.
So somehow they're able to tap into this more knowing, understanding experience.
Right.
But then still tap into the language aspect of the left hemisphere to be able to articulate it.
Wow.
So they must have really flexible brains.
Yeah. So what do you want people to take from this book? After we go out, grab it today. What do you want there to just be like everybody in the world just walking around with these psychic abilities? What happens in your perfect world?
That'd be great. That would be fantastic. But for me, it's more of the exploration. Being curious and considering that maybe there's more to the universe and to the world and to our minds than we really know.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's really the exploration is the fun part. And I hope people ask questions and explore and get curious about their own mind and what is possible.
Well, Jeff, I feel very privileged to have had the opportunity to ask you all of my questions. I could talk about this for days with you. I thank you so much for being here. Can you tell everyone where we can go to get the book?
You can get the book pretty much anywhere books are sold, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, anywhere.
Okay, I love it. Thank you so much for being here,
Thank
Jeff.
you. Appreciate it.